It's time for the cycle to end. It's time to end the belligerence, bring home our troops, and rejoin the family of nations. That's exactly what we intend to do. To set the stage for discussing our plans for Iraq, I'd like to give you a little historical background. First, I'd like to read a few excerpts from a speech I gave to an anti-war rally on February 15th, 2003, a month before the Iraq War started. Saddam Hussein is a bad guy. He's a bad guy now. He was a bad guy in 1990 when April Glaspie of the State Department gave him the green light to invade Kuwait. He was a bad guy in the 1980s when Donald Rumsfeld sat down with him for a chat while he was supposedly gassing the Kurds. He was a bad guy in 1977 when Zbigniew Brzezinski met with him and proposed the invasion of Iran. And he was a bad guy in the 1960s when the CIA hired him to assassinate Iraqi leader Abdel Karim Qasem and then helped Saddam take over Iraq. He's always been a bad guy, but he was our bad guy. Right up to 1990, official Department of Defense documents praised Saddam for vastly improving the education, medical care, and standard of living of his people, along with women's rights and religious freedom. His regime was called one of the most enlightened, progressive governments in the region. And it was. I taught at the War College from those very documents. But there was a problem. The Berlin Wall had come down and the Soviet Union had collapsed. The first Bush White House had to find another bad guy, fast, to justify the defense budget. And they did, Saddam Hussein. They suckered him into attacking Kuwait, and the first Gulf War was on. Now, the second President Bush wants his Gulf War too. Planning for it started long before he became president, long before 9/11. In September 1990, his advisors set regime change in Iraq as a primary objective of U.S. foreign policy, should Bush become president. But they made it clear that the purpose of moving against Iraq had nothing to do with Saddam personally, whether he was there or not. They said, we need to permanently occupy Iraq in order to set the stage for dominating the entire Middle East and therefore controlling its $10 trillion worth of oil and gas. If you want to see that document written by Wolfowitz, Libby, Pearl, Jeb Bush, and others, it's still on the website. Go to pnac.org. The problems with starting a preemptive war against Iraq are several. It would be immoral, it would be costly in terms of American lives and in dollars. Hasn't that one turned out? It would require us to keep troops in Iraq indefinitely. It would come between us and our allies. It would incense the Arab world. It would provide Osama bin Laden with thousands of new recruits, and it would therefore cause an enormous increase in the terrorist threat. It would destroy our national security and further endanger the American people. As a combat veteran, I will not stand idly by and watch our security destroyed by a president who went AWOL rather than fight in Vietnam. I say no to war against Iraq. When I joined the Air Force, I swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that includes a renegade president. If this war happens, I will call for the impeachment of George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and the whole oil mafia. We are the people. We are sovereign. The whole world is with us. And we say no. This war would be treason. God bless America, and God save us from George W. Bush. Now that was February 15th, 2003. A month later, troops were massed in Kuwait, but shock and awe hadn't yet started. This is a little of what I said on March 15th, 2003, on the eve of the war. Let me read you a couple of quotes. Quote, "This war is a defensive war. It was forced upon us by our enemies who wish to destroy our nation. The only thing we cannot afford to lose in this war is our freedom, the foundation of our life and our future. No one has the right to complain about limitations on his personal freedom caused by the war," unquote. Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister, 1943. I'll skip to the last one. Quote, "Beware the leader who bangs the drums of war in order to whip the citizenry into a patriotic fervor. The citizenry, infused with fear and blinded by patriotism, will offer up all of their rights unto the leader. How do I know? This is what I have done," unquote. Julius Caesar. Now, I've been severely criticized for speaking out in opposition to this coming war. We're told that we're aiding and abetting the enemy. We're told that we should support the president no matter what. Well, I say hogwash. I feel an affinity for the troops deployed in Kuwait. They're my comrades in arms. But the truth is, they're not over there protecting our freedoms. Our freedoms are not under attack by Saddam Hussein. Our freedoms are under attack by John Ashcroft. They are threatened by John Poindexter. They are trampled by Donald Rumsfeld. They are disdained by Dick Cheney. And they are not even understood by George W. Bush. The troops surrounding Iraq are not protecting us. We are protecting them and their honor and their freedoms by speaking truth to power. And here is the truth that we proclaim. This coming war has nothing to do with national security, or freedom, or democracy, or human rights, or protecting our allies, or weapons of mass destruction, or defeating terrorism, or disarming Iraq. It has to do with money, it has to do with oil, and it has to do with raw imperial power, and it's wrong. Preemptive war is immoral, illegal, unconstitutional, a war crime against the people of Iraq, and treason against the United States of America. And again, I called for their impeachment. Now that was March 15, 2003, on the eve of the Iraq War. Now, the point of this bit of history is that we in the peace movement knew better. We knew what this war would do to our country. We knew what it would do to our reputation in the world. We knew what it would do to the safety of our people. We weren't taken in by the doctored and manipulated intelligence and the outright untruths we were told to justify this war. One more little bit of history. I'd like to quote very briefly from the memoirs of the first President Bush, written before his son got the job. Quote, "Trying to eliminate Saddam would have incurred incalculable human and political costs. Apprehending him was probably impossible. We would have been forced to occupy Baghdad and, in effect, rule Iraq. There was no viable exit strategy we could see. Had we gone the invasion route, the United States could conceivably still be an occupying power in a bitterly hostile land," unquote. My sisters and brothers, it's just too darn bad his son can't read. Of course he can. He's very good with a teleprompter. I wish I had one. But evidently he didn't read those memoirs. Now, here we are, 4 years and over 3,400 American lives later. Of course, it's also hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilian lives and hundreds of billions of American dollars later. This misguided war has cost more American lives than 9/11 and has dragged on longer than World War II.